It's that place where once a year, high art and hustlers rub elbows. A place for icon worshippers and insurgents, old legends and young upstarts. Welcome to the French Riviera resort of Cannes and the 77th film festival that bears its name. The first one since French actress and director Judith Godrèche went back on her personal story. She'd been her filmmaker's mistress at age 14. She sparked a MeToo reckoning in French cinema. Cannes not always been ahead of the curve on the issue. This year, though, it's premiering Godrèche's short film about sexual violence. And organizers picked as jury present Greta Gerwig, the director of the smash feminist hit Barbie. How in sync with the times can a festival and an industry be? We'll raise the curtain on a Cannes that's always in search of the right balance between the socially relevant and good old-fashioned star power. A festival that will showcase the new film, for instance, by Mohammad Rasoulof, who had to flee Iran to present his new feature, and what may be the last hurrah at 85 for two-time Golden Palm winner Francis Ford Coppola. What will this year's festival say about the state of the movies and the state of our world? Today in the France 24 debate, can Cannes move with the times? Joining us from the French Riviera resort, French film producer Judith Godrèche, co-chair of the 50/50 collective and advocacy group that campaigns for greater diversity in the film industry. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Have you taken your vitamins? It's quite a sporting 2 weeks.
Yeah, it will be very fast with a lot of issues for everybody, even on art and social issues like the MeToo movement.
Indeed. Welcome to the show. Welcome as well to film and TV actress Sarah Verhagen. You are with the ADA, the Association des Actrices.
That's right.
A play on words because it means actors, masculine and feminine.
Yeah, it's more like a will to include everyone and to show that we are definitely, without a doubt, a feminist association.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. Thanks as well to talent agent Solène Edouard. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be joined from New York City by filmmaker and screenwriter Elizabeth Subrin shortly. Your reactions on the hashtag F24debate. Yeah, it's a reckoning that included the rape charges filed against French actor Gérard Depardieu and a host of big-name directors and producers in recent months. We've also seen success at the Oscars for last year's Cannes winner, the feminist courtroom drama Anatomy of a Fall. As Camille Knight reports, it's been quite the build-up to Cannes 2024.
As the red carpet is rolled out, a heavy atmosphere weighs over Cannes. The MeToo movement has cast a shadow over the world's biggest film festival.
It doesn't just ruin the festival, it ruins the film industry as a whole. We think about it more during the festival, but we actually think about it all the time when we go to the cinema.
It's true, we've heard a lot of rumours about it, so I think it's going to be slightly different this year compared to other festivals or previous editions.
On everyone's mind, this open letter published in Le Monde newspaper, where 100 figures of the film industry have called for a new all-encompassing law on sexual violence, posing in a historic photo. There's also this investigation into film producer Alain Sard, published in Elle magazine. 9 women, including actresses Annelise M. and Laurence Cotte, accuse him of harassment, sexual assault, and in some cases, rape. One actress anonymously claimed the producer sexually abused her in the 80s when she was still a minor. Sard has denied the accusations. He says he's outraged and devastated. It's against this tense backdrop that actress Judith Godrèche, a now leading figure for the movement, is also expected in Cannes.
It takes time. You have to be loud, express yourself, say things how they are.
The actress will be presenting a short film at the festival in which she portrays 1,000 victims of sexual violence.
Judith Godrèche, where you're standing a year ago, there was unease over Johnny Depp taking part on opening night. He was presenting a film out of competition just as he was involved in a bitter courtroom divorce. This year, the festival is going to showcase Judith Godrèche's short film about sexual violence as early as tomorrow. Your thoughts on how much this MeToo reckoning is being talked about and how the Cannes Film Festival is addressing the issue?
We are happy that women can talk now The MeToo movement started 7 years ago in the US. We waited 7 years to have the MeToo in France. It's a long time, and we understand that we need that time because just talking about that is not that easy. And we know that the film festival is listening to us. We talked with Thierry Frémaux a few weeks ago about those issues. They are working on that, but we need more acts, and we want them to be more efficient to protect people. And as you know, cinema is a very powerful tool, and the Cannes Film Festival is seen by the world. So we have to be as an example in these issues.
We heard, for instance, Sarah Verhagen, Judith Godrèche in interviews saying how one of the big problems is you go from boom to bust when you're a film actor or when you're a film actress. And you're vulnerable because of the fact that you go from wondering if you're going to have a job to suddenly being on a film set with makeup artists and catering and all of this. When you hear Laoussine talk about protecting, how do you protect people on a movie set, for instance?
Well, I think the responsibility has to be collective. Like, we have to start realizing that every single person on a set should be equal in this. There's much too much hierarchy. Like, it's a very pyramidal way on sets in France, which means that, for example, we keep asking for reference. We are working to try and get somebody that people can go to, like HR in another job, to talk about problems. But in France, the problem is that right now, these references are employed by the producers. So if the producer is the one that is being accused of something, or if his lead actor or her lead actor is accused, that's going to create something. We need to have somebody who's external to the production company, who's going to be able to be somebody that people trust to go and talk to without repercussions.
Is France more hierarchical than other countries when you make movies?
Yeah, I think there's something very much about power. I don't know if you would agree. And I think the director who's going to speak later on, who's worked in both countries, could probably talk to that. But
Why is that?
I think there's something in France, recently our president talked about Gérard Depardieu as being the pride of France. And I think that in France, the reason why people listen to Judith Godrèche is also because her director, one of the men she accuses, went on camera for years talking about very openly, because he knew that he was completely untouchable because he was a famous director. And that's the problem in France, is that you have this sort of thing where if you are the producer with the power, or if you are the director with the power, or if you are the actor or actress with the power, you are completely free to abuse the people who are below you.
Soren Edouard.
Yeah, I think the vision that we have of the director, so the one with the vision.
So hang on, it's the director. It's not the producer. It's the director who has the power in France.
Well, I mean, historically, it's coming from the new wave. Obviously, when you have the director who's also the screenwriter, and he's extremely powerful, and he's going to bring his vision. So that brought us wonderful movies and wonderful directors. And I also think that's what made the French cinema exist in the entire world. It's also part of this. So this is what we have pride in. And I think this is very linked to that. This is why we have such a view of our icons of French cinema, to take Judith Godrèche also title for her TV series. And it's hard. And I think, as Sarah was saying, I think it's very hard because women have been talking about this for years. Yeah. Judith Godrèche wrote a book about this decades ago. Other women...
Nobody paid attention?
We couldn't pay attention because you're touching French icons. It's very difficult. It's exactly like incest in your family. When your favorite uncle, your older brother, somebody you've already been looking at, and I think in France, we take great pride in having great directors and this vision of cinema. This is also a little bit the exception culturelle, something we all fought for, to have a place in the industry. And the place we had in the worldwide industry of cinema was also those auteurs-réalisateurs from this vision we have from the new wave. So here you are, and you're coming and you're saying these icons actually are capable of doing bad things. It's really hard to accept. Again, like incest in your family, it's very hard to accept that your favorite uncle, yes, can have some things, have done some things to your nieces or nephews that are extremely bad and violent.
So, Laoussine Grimich, you just heard Céline Edouard spell out, I guess, what's the contradiction here. Part of what makes French films so great is the fact that directors are given free rein, but that power can be abused. So what do? Do you redress the balance? Do you give more power to you, for instance, Mr. Producer?
I totally agree with Solène Edouard, and we have to get away from this tradition of the all-powerful director. It's a legacy from the Nouvelle Vague, New Wave, and we have to get rid of that.
Will it stymie creativity if the director has less power?
It does not restrain creativity. And as a producer, we hire people and we have to protect them. It's the labor law.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the first thing we have to work on. And as a producer, we have a responsibility to protect both talents and technicians, because we talk about Judith Godrèche and the actresses, but we have women as technicians, and there's vulnerability also there, and we have this responsibility to protect them. And the Nouvelle Vague, it was like 50 years ago. We have to move on, and we're proud of our cinema with this vision, and on a set, everybody is devoted to the director. When we do a movie, we work as producer to find the funds to do the movie. But when the shooting starts, the director becomes this almost god on the set, and we have to get rid of that. He's working with the team, and we need more equality on the set.
So we are pleased to be joined by Elizabeth Soubrin, film director from New York City. Welcome back to the France 24 debate. Elizabeth, earlier in our conversation, Sarah Verhagen was saying how there's a specific issue when it comes to MeToo in the French film industry, which is that here, when movies are made, it's more hierarchical than it is elsewhere. Do you agree with that statement? And what is it about France in particular?
You know, I've been asking this question a lot because I've been working in France, which is different than the US in certain ways. I think the idea of auteurism is absolutely the same thing, and that there's also the issue of young filmmakers seeing representations of young male filmmakers seeing representations of older filmmakers, whether it's in cinema, movies about movies, or interviews or whatever, just the representation of directors. So bad behavior generationally continues. In terms of comparing it from France to the US, I think for me the big question is just why did it take so long? And this is, once this whole thing came out, I was really fascinated about.
So why did it take longer?
From my American perspective, why did it take longer? I mean, I think there is a culture of discretion in France that was something that I navigated, in making a film in France. I think that French cinema is like was said, is considered an utter god. I think also in France, and I don't
so
know.
So what does that mean, the culture of discretion? So you were just, nobody would question your word on a set? Is that what happened?
In my experience is very different. I had a film set from Maria Schneider in 1983. My film set was 90% women and 50% filmmakers of color. So there were certain things about the power dynamics that were very, very different, maybe perhaps bringing an American perspective to a French set. So most of my questions about the French industry is observing what's going on, having friends in 50-50, observing how the French film industry works. And so it's observational, and what I've been told by women actresses, producers, directors in France is that there's more of a guilty, and I mean innocent till proven guilty situation in France legally, whereas in the US, men just dropped like flies as soon as they were accused, whether they denied it or not.
So, for instance, the case against this film producer who was ubiquitous, a French movie mogul. His name is Alain Sard. On Monday, 9 women come forward. And Sarah Verhagen, they are launching those accusations. Is he innocent?
Not for the first time.
Not for the first time.
He was accused.
But he's never been proven guilty.
That's the problem in France. Is that in France, I'm so sorry I forgot your name,
Elizabeth.
but Elizabeth just very rightly said, is that in the US, I think you have to prove that somebody is guilty or give reasonable doubt that they are guilty. In France, the victim has to prove that they are not lying. And that's the problem. And that's why in France, we have 97% or 96%, I think the latest number is, of procedures that end up with dropped charges. And that is of the few women who are brave enough to face the ordeal that it is to press charges in France, because it's going to be super expensive, it's going to be very lengthy, it's going to be painful. And in France, you are going to be accused of doing it to get famous, to get rich, even though in France, the compensation is ridiculous. Yeah. For women who do win, they will get 2,000 euros or something. I don't know, it will cost more than the actual procedure. So, but in France, we have this thing of like, they're talking now. Why are they doing it? They probably don't work enough right now. And there's going to be that whole thing of discrediting the victims. This particular producer, was accused by several women of rape and of having a whole network of prostitution. The charges were dropped. This is in 97, I think, that this happened. And now suddenly he's very shocked and angry at new accusations that are coming forward from women who didn't know each other, who all describe the same things. It drives me insane, I'm sorry.
And it's also very lengthy, and this is what you were saying. Yeah. I mean, Charlotte Arnould, made the first case against Gérard Depardieu 6 years ago.
But isn't that part of the problem as well? You say it's lengthy. Isn't it also because be it Harvey Weinstein, be it Gérard Depardieu, they're men who are in their 70s and who are no longer as powerful as they once were. It's much harder to go public when the person is in their prime.
No. I mean, Charlotte Arnould came forward when he was on set with her, so he was working. I mean, but he's only go on trial in June this year. So it's been 6 years just for the case to be, sufficient enough so that it would be brought to court. So in those 5+ years, this woman hasn't had work because she's labeled as the one who accused Gérard Depardieu, and it's super hard. So I think, I mean, I admire every day the courage of this young woman, and I think she's not the same age as the women coming forward now. She's young, and I think she's from a different generation, and she saw what was happening, and she couldn't even imagine not to press charges against him. I mean, for her, it was unbelievable not to do so. So she did what she thought was right because she's a young woman, in her prime. And yes, this is wrong, and this should not happen. But it has been such a toll on her career, on her family life, on everything. I mean, you just have to listen to her, just even for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, to say, why do this? I mean, she has nothing anymore, and she still doesn't have a trial. And it's been more than 5 years. I mean, this is why it's very hard. So it's not that it's innocent until proven guilty, yes, in France, but this is a judicial process. It doesn't mean, and I think maybe Laoussine can talk about this, it doesn't mean that as a producer, you have also a responsibility regarding labor law, because yes, you have to protect the people who are working on the set that you are responsible of. And I think, yes, there is...
So before I go to Laoussine, when you're speaking to a casting director, what do you do to convince them that someone who's brave enough to come forward isn't toxic and yes, should be hired?
Well, I think there's one thing. I think also the projects that are coming forward, and for me, this is something that is very important. I think the kind of stories that you're going to bring forward is going to say something about you, especially if you're a writer and a director. The way you're going to be telling the story. Elizabeth was talking about, how her set was set up, so it was diverse and it had women, and I think this is what we will be looking at. So is the movie, the story that you're coming forward, is something that on the principle are the stories that I want to tell, and are telling stories of diversity? Are those stories made or written by women for women? And is your set going to be diverse enough? And I think this is going to be a big difference.
Laoussine Gribich, let me ask you, because what the mood was in the build-up to this Cannes, because there had been these debunked rumors of MeToo accusations against 10 famous actors and directors. These were rumors stoked by far-right social media accounts. This is not like the hard cases that we're talking about here, criminal cases. This was the court of public opinion in this case. What do you make of the fact that this happened last week, and why it was stoked by the far right?
Why by the far right? I don't know, but it's totally defamatory. There's no evidence. There's nothing. Nobody talked about that. There's no woman who talked about anything about these men. So we just need to wait for Mediapart or other journalists to work on these stories, if there's any story. But it's only rumors, and we don't trust rumors.
Yeah. Why are these rumors fostered?
Because it makes feminists and all these groups that are getting together for the first time and talking. We're getting, like, for the first time, we're having meetings with technicians and directors and agents and actors and producers and all these groups for diversity.
So create confusion?
All of that, we're all coming together. I think everyone in France would agree to say that we shouldn't let people rape children or women. I think everyone agrees. But I think there's also this fear of being caught in this wave of people being accused of things. And did I help? Was I part of the system? Did I protect? And so it's much easier to discredit us and to say, look at them. They're just doing a witch hunt. They're trying to accuse all these innocent men, all these poor men with these ruined careers. And so it's very, very clever to start a rumor like this, because it will give fuel to all the people who don't want to believe this and who will say, like, you see, I told you, it was all fake. And maybe Depardieu is innocent as well. And maybe this person is innocent.
Movies reflect the society we live in. And you talked about France being hierarchical. Across the Alps, a low-budget black and white film about domestic violence in working-class post-war Rome created a sensation. C'è ancora domani, there's still tomorrow, topping Barbie and Oppenheimer at the Italian box office last year. And the movies courted controversy because, well, just simply, Solène Edouard, because of the subject matter. Because, let's face it, it is a business, you want to make money. Here's a movie that nobody bet on and made money.
Well, there's another one in France here, and that is the Artus movie where he asked handicapped children, mentally...
it's a comedy that's just come out.
Yes, mentally handicapped children. And it's a major, major success. And I think nobody was betting on this. So... yes, it matters to people when you tell a story that touches them. So yes, I mean, I saw this movie and I thought it was absolutely unbelievable. It's a way to talk about an issue and make it entertaining because it's a beautiful movie. It's in black and white. It feels like you're watching an Italian movie from, the high time of Cinecittà, and it's wonderful. It feels good, but at the same time, it talks about an important topic. And I think for me, this is really, and again, I know this is also what the collective 50-50 is doing, is one of the ways to address the power imbalance on set is also to bring more women and more diversity to the sets.
Yes.
Yes, as the directors, as writers, but also as technicians. And this is something that has been an effort that's been collective over the past 5 or 6 years, but at least, several years. And we are all rooting for having different stories. And to have different stories coming forward, you need to give women some space and you need to get some diversity in there.
Yes.
I think this is not, it's not by chance that those stories are coming forward. But yes, there is this wonderful Italian movie, but also Anatomy of a Fall, as you said at the beginning. I mean, Anatomy of a Fall talks about a woman who is so powerful and so much powerful than her husband that we think she murdered him. I talk about power dynamics in the couple, but also obviously Judith Godrèche series. Before she came forward, she came out with Icons of French Cinema, and it's a form of art, and it's to tell about the story. Or Vanessa Spingora with Le Consentement, that talks about also a toxic
the film adaptation of her personal story.
Exactly.
Elizabeth Subrin, to what degree last year with the box office success where you are of Barbie, do movies start conversations?
Yes, I do think movies start conversations. I think the thing about Barbie on the positive level is that it brought massive amounts of people into theaters to be exposed to what I would call pop feminism, or I would even call it corporate feminism. And even though I think it's problematic, it is absolutely opening a conversation, especially for teenage boys, which is a huge part of the marketplace. I think that it's not surprising, though, that Greta Gerwig was completely overlooked at the Oscars as opposed to Ryan Gosling. It's kind of astonishing, or Margot Robbie, because I think at the core, this is really about power, and nobody gives up power voluntarily. So, and I also think it has to do with education, that the next generation, whether they're being educated as audience members or educated as makers, the power dynamic needs to shift. And one of the things when we're talking about parity on a film set is a lot of this is about the boys knowing each other. Big boys, teams knowing each other. A DP brings in his crew. One of the things I dealt with in both the film I'm working on now in France and the film I made last year is that when I would say, okay, I want parity, they would talk about, well, this person brings in his team or this person brings in their team. But the thing is when crews all know each other, they bond on their relationships. When crews are not all buddies, they bond on the making of the film. So I think.
And does that make a better movie?
I think absolutely, because it makes a set that is all about a devotion to the film, as opposed to devotion to their careers, to their relationships. They have to be on that set because they want to. But I gotta say, trying to get that kind of diversity in Paris was so much harder than it was in the US because it is highly networked and there's a great deal of resistance. And also it's like an incredibly white film industry, And this is intersectional. You can't separate the two. And I could talk about things with 50-50, which would not happen in the United States. There would be task forces on race and women of color. It's just the lack of kind of intersectional attention in the French film industry. This is something that's only begun in the last few years. The fact that Aïssa brought this up in 2020 Césars, but it didn't really have half the amount of impact as Adele walking out, and Aïssa did as well, says a lot too.
Lausin Grimic, again, you're a producer. You have to earn a living. So how do you, what kind of stories sell, and how do you get the crew together? Listening to Elizabeth Subrin there, how do you assemble the right crew? What's the recipe for success?
I totally agree. We need more diversity and more women on the set. The statistics are frightening. And when
do you agree it makes for better movies?
Sorry?
Do you agree that it makes for better movies?
Of course, of course. And as example, our president said Gérard Depardieu is making the France proud. But I have other names and better names that makes France proud. We have Alice Diop. Alice Diop with Saint-Omer. She's a black female director, and she won prizes. She won the, it was the Golden Bear in Golden Lion in Mostra de Venise in 2022. And this year we had Mati Diop with the movie Dahomey. She won the Golden Bear at La Berlinale. So we have black female, and we have Anatomie d'une chute, which was a big success, huge success worldwide. We have 3 women, 2 black women that won prizes all over the world. They did great movies, and they are women. We don't have that with men in the French cinema. So we need more women, more diversity on the set, and as talents too. Because I totally agree, this industry is very, very white.
Very white and
heterosexual.
And as we said, when you see on the box office, the French box office, the movies with the best rentability, most of them, they are from women or from diversity.
Right.
And it's figures.
Let's talk about the box office, not just in France, but around the world. Last year, Hollywood blockbusters boosted audiences, not just in the United States, but also worldwide. However, not enough to return to pre-pandemic levels. Economists predict that despite a growing world population, pre-COVID levels of cinema goers will only be equaled in the year 2026. This is an interesting chart that was put forth by S&P recently. There you see movie-going, the part in yellow there, that's the United States. In purple, South Korea, Germany, and China. And there you see that dip, of course, that corresponds to COVID. And despite all those big hits from last year, we're still not back to the same number of people going to the movies anymore. Sonnen Edouard, your thoughts on that? Why is that?
Well, I don't know, because I think in France it's a little bit different.
Same is true in France.
Yeah,
by the way.
but I think there's still we are proud again of our cinema, and people like to go see French movies in the cinema. Probably it's easier to watch Netflix at home than to go outside in the rain and go buy tickets. So I think I'm not sure we're lacking good movies. I think there are several movies, many movies actually coming out in France every week. Lots to choose from, and it's sometimes really hard, and sometimes it's easy to maybe stay at home and watch something on your with your remote control in hand.
Sarah Verhagen?
Yeah, I think the financial crisis that's happening is clearly not helping. But I also think that maybe the platforms, including French ones actually, like France Télévisions, for example, they're moving at a faster pace than some of the cinema as far as diversity and LGBTQ subjects, for example, as well. Because we're talking about how white and male the cinema industry is in France, but it's also very heterosexual and homophobic. And I think that needs to change as well, because we're talking about a big part of the population that doesn't feel represented or feels misrepresented. And I think in the young people, things are changing. So they do turn maybe to platforms, but also the young cinematographers, like we see it in our association, like we get more and more testimonies of actresses who've been on sets with young directors who were so respectful and kept asking how things were going, who were very respectful if there was nudity. More and more young directors want to have in their contract that they want to have somebody an intimacy coordinator on set. So you have this new generation that really wants change. And many things in France, sorry, I'm going broader, but like today a petition was started to ask for a significant change in the law with finances to actually allow things to change. And there was, I think the latest number that I got was 40,000 people have signed it since this morning. And the website was actually burning. So I will tell everyone to go and sign this petition on the Fondation des Femmes and tell the government that actually there's many of us who want things to change and who want things to move forward for a more equal and respectful work environment.
Yeah, the Fondation des Femmes, a women's advocacy group. Let me ask you, Sarah, because you mentioned, and you both mentioned, platforms. Those platforms, well, they give you a look in on the diversity elsewhere. They also expose audiences to what's going on elsewhere in the world. Does that mean more diversity or more uniformity in terms of the stories we're telling?
I think nothing is perfect. And I do think that, working with platforms will have its other challenges. But I think that as far as representation and changing the narrative, maybe that is going faster right now on things that have been produced by platforms. I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong, but that's what I feel.
Elizabeth Subrin, because, it's Cannes. We're watching movies from all over the world. Is, for instance, I don't know, a police drama the same, whether it's made in Korea or in France, in the US?
I mean, I want to just start by saying I completely agree with what you're all saying about platforms in relationship to COVID. I don't think that I can compare those, although what I would say about American streamers is there's definitely a direction to make more and more mainstream films. And I think one of the incredible things about France is because France has state support, that extraordinary films that, like Anatomy of a Fall, that had an incredible attention in the United States, that film, I'm not sure that film would even get financed. In the United States, Anatomy of a Fall, we would not be able to get the kind of budget that she had. The French cinema's support allows for so much more richness and experimentation. So I think there is a really interesting phenomena, while on the one hand, France may be kind of behind in certain ways about representation, the crew, everything that we talked about. On the other hand, I think there's the possibility in France, because French cinema is not driven by capital in exactly the same way, that France could totally surpass the United States. Like, I just think there's an incredible possibility for change, because the mainstream streamers in the United States are getting more and more and more corporate and less creative. So the diversity that you see is really kind of virtue signaling. It's kind of masking a very traditional cinema.
Let me bring in Laoussine Grimich on this, because last year there was criticism when Anatomy of a Fall won the Golden Palm, because there was a time during the pension reform that was taking place here in France. And in her acceptance speech, the director, she blasted the government. And people said, well, French cinema, it gets so much financing from the state. How dare she criticize the government? Your thoughts on this, Laoussine Grimich, on that relationship between creators and state subsidies, as you just heard it described there by Elizabeth Subrin?
First of all, the French cinema, when you go to the cinema, you buy a ticket, and on this ticket there's a tax, and this tax goes to the other movies. So the success of a movie, that's the French system. On every ticket there's this tax. So when we have successes, they are financing the new movies. So it's the cinema financing the cinema, and that's the end. For me, it's the end of the debate. people saying, it's paid with the taxes of everybody. It's not right.
Yeah, it's not the taxes. It's not the taxes. It's the movie tickets. And I think this is very important. And again, it comes back to the conversation we had about those rumors that came out and why this. It's one way to disturb also this process that is happening and to say, well, this is all financed by your taxes. No, it's financed by your movie ticket.
Right.
The movie ticket, of course, all the movie tickets, not just French movies. So when you go see Barbie and Oppenheimer, yes, it brings money potentially to some French movies, the one that will come forward and request some support. Some support would be selective. So yes, you will go in front of a commission and you could get some money from the selective. But most of it, this financing is automatic, as we call. So the moment you are a producer and you start producing your movie, you have this support, this automatic support from the French Center for Cinema that comes forward. And yes, this is not paid by your taxes.
So, Soden Edouard, you're packing your bag. You're off in the morning for Cannes. And Cannes, again, it's a French festival, but it welcomes the world. It's also a movie market. And it's not just the MeToo reckoning that's going to make headlines. For instance, there is going to be we're going to see Mohammad Rasoulof, the Iranian director, who's had to flee his home country to avoid prison to come and present his movie. He, in a statement to AFP, he said he had to choose between prison and exile, and sadly, with a heavy heart, he's chosen exile. Your thoughts on, you have him, you could also cite Kirill Srebrenikov, the Russian filmmaker who's also in exile, about the movies and dissidents. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is also why cinema is so powerful. Again, we've been coming forward to the stories. These are people who wanted to tell those stories so badly that they're willing to actually give up, their life, their family, and leave them behind. And because if you make a movie, it's to have it shown. It's not to stay home and have nobody seeing, especially when we talk about feminism and we talk about Me Too. And I think it's by chance, but I think it's very important that we talk about Iran because we've seen the pictures, the videos of these women removing their headscarves. And yes, this is one way to tell stories that maybe we don't see on the news because we have a blackout and we don't see everything that's happening. And for me, this is also what makes Cannes very different or any kind of festival of cinema because you have some very powerful stories coming forward. And yes, this Iranian filmmaker is one of them. And yes, you want to be there and you want to be there for him and show him that we pay attention also to what's happening in this country.
What's going to be the highlight for you from this fortnight, from this Cannes fortnight, Sarah Verhagen?
I'm going to stay at home, but I'm going to watch my colleagues present their films. Ariane Labed, who is part of our association, she's presenting a film there that was made with freedom and respect and of its crew and its actors, and I want to see more stories like that.
Elizabeth Subrin, Cannes is a mix, of high art and blockbusters. They try to put in a couple at least. Not. What are you looking forward to during this fortnight?
I wish I could be there. I was there 2 years ago. I'm curious about the whole fortnight selection. I've heard incredible things about that. And since that's where our film premiered, I think my attention will be primarily on the fortnight, but I'll be really interested to see in competition also who actually wins. I was at the Césars in 2023, and there was talk about how few women were nominated. But then, on the other hand, most of the women who were nominated won. So I'm interested in also in who is getting attention and actually who wins.
So obviously, it's also about the awards. We're out of time, but Laoussine Grimich, if there was one ticket you could get, for which film would it be?
Oh. Very hard question. I don't know. I hesitate. I hesitate until the last minute. I will say Megalopolis,
Yes.
but I'll be lying.
Megalopolis, which is Francis Ford Coppola at 85. He sold his vines in California to finance the project. I want to thank you so much, Lausine Grimich, for being with us. Good luck to you during the Cannes Film Festival. I want to thank as well Elizabeth Subrin in New York, Sarah Verhagen, Solène Edouard, good luck to you as you make your way south to the Riviera. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.
This week in Reporter